The reason why I like length of time is number one, is that you can learn about the different phases of being a franchisee. And number two, validating time is you can see how that franchise company's evolved. And franchise companies evolve. So learn a little bit about how that franchise company's evolved. And that is validation made simple.
Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. Are you stuck in the corporate rat race, worrying about layoffs, and longing to take control of your destiny? This is the place for frustrated executives like you who want to escape the grind, live life on your own terms, and build wealth. Whether you're ready to make a full transition into franchise ownership or want to start building a side business along your corporate job, Pete guides you every step of the way. He'll talk about how to create career and income security, diversify your assets and income, and live life on your own terms. Your path to controlling your own destiny starts now.
Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. My name is Pete Gilfillan. I'm an entrepreneur, best-selling author of the book Hire Yourself. I'm a nationally recognized franchise consultant, and I'm a proud corporate escapee. You know, as we always focus on things in the podcast, my mission is really to help people take control of their destiny, to live life on their own terms, and certainly build wealth. And the question I want to answer today is that as you start thinking about franchising as a potential path to maybe eventually escape corporate world or just build wealth, part of this is that you want to evaluate franchises, and the most important part of evaluating a franchise opportunity is doing what we call validation. And validation is your chance to talk to actual franchise owners, and these franchise owners, once you build rapport, can answer a lot of your questions, and more specifically financially, what the business will do. So think of validation as your way to answer a simple question. How do you find out if franchises are happy or making money? So how do you find that out? And that is through validation. So let's talk a little bit about validation. Specifically, when we evaluate franchises, there are 4 core steps that you go through. So you go through what is an introduction call, you learn about the business model, you go through their franchise disclosure document. And the third step in the process of evaluating franchise is validation. And validation, in my opinion, is the most important part of evaluating a franchise. Validation is your chance to talk to actual franchise owners without the franchisor present. And once you build rapport, you can ask them the very specific financial questions. Now, when we talk about validation is done in 2 primary ways. The first way is you'll find that a lot of franchisors will do group validation calls. And these are great. They're great foundational because there's going to be one franchisee on that call, and there's a bunch of people that are interested in the franchise concept, and they can all dial in and ask questions. So this is very efficient for everybody, but it's not overly personal. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about one-on-one validation calls. And that's where you can talk to anyone and as many franchisees as you want. And this tends to be this way because once you build rapport, you can go a lot deeper with your questions. Now, when we talk about calls, I call it a contact sport. No, I'm not suggesting we're going to be hitting people, but rather franchisees are busy. They got their families, their hobbies, and their businesses, and they're getting pulled a lot of different directions. And what you'll find is that there's a lot of demand for people wanting to do one-on-one validation calls because it's the best way to find out if franchises are happy and if they're making money. So when you decide who you're going to validate with, and again, you can validate within many and whoever you want to. Bottom line is that when you reach out to them, you leave a voicemail message, you wait a week and go, God, I never did hear from, you are being screened. So what I want you to do is to think about this is that I want you to be persistent. Reach out to them, kindly ask to do a validation call. If you don't hear from them the next day, leave another voicemail message, send them another text. But the idea behind it is we always want to be on a cadence of like 5 days of kindly reaching out. If you, in fact, do not get a response within 5 days, go back to the franchise development person, ask them to help coordinate scheduling the validation call. Now, franchisees aren't required to do validation calls, but sometimes when the franchise development person reaches out to them, they'll make it priority. So call in reinforcements if you're not getting your call scheduled. All right, you have your call scheduled. Now what I want you to do is I want you to create a template for your validation call. In the upper right-hand side, who you're talking to, where you're at, where they're at, and all that kind of stuff. And then I want you to put in your top 10 questions. Now, you can certainly ask more than 10 questions, but if you only had time to ask 10 questions, these would be the 10 questions you would ask. And I want you to print this out, write your notes right on the paper, or you can do it digitally, whatever works. But the idea is this is a great way to capture the answers to your questions. When I'm putting together my performa and making my final call, I pull them out of the folder, make them flat on my desk, and it's a great way to have all the information. So create a template for your conversations. All right, you have your call scheduled. You have your template created. Now you're calling a complete stranger in a very short amount of time. You're going to be asking very intrusive questions. And the problem is that sometimes people get to the point too fast. You'll hear it on group calls all the time. They'll say, well, how much money do you make with this business is the first question. And that is rude and that is inconsiderate. So I want you to have the flow of your questions to go like this. First question I always want you to ask a franchisee is, hey, how did you end up becoming an XYZ franchisee? And they're going to tell you their story in some way, somehow you're going to build a connection, or simply put, build rapport. And that's the most important part, is to build that rapport. Now, once you started building rapport, now I want you to ask important questions that are not intrusive. Examples might be, how was the initial training? How is the ongoing marketing support, right? So these are important questions. They're not intrusive, so you're continuing to build that rapport. So you build rapport, you ease into the questions. Well, now you can ask the financial questions. And if you put your work in up front, bottom line is you're going to get the answers to your financial questions. And you can ask whatever financial question you want. You can ask, what can I expect in terms of revenue? What's the net profit margin? How long did it take to break even? You can even validate the expense structure of the business. One of the great questions you can ask franchisees is, hey, listen, did you create a financial performer when you're starting your business? And if they say yes, then you may say, listen, if I'm willing to keep it confidential, would you be willing to share your performer with me? So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. So you can ask any financial question you want, and you can get the answers to it as long as you build that rapport from that standpoint. Now, as you're finishing up the call, always make sure you thank them for sharing their very valuable time with you, and ask, would it be okay if I circled back with you if you had additional questions? So if you give yourself that ability to come back when you're putting together your performa, when you're making your final call, you got a few questions, give yourself the door, and they're going to say, no problem, call me back anytime. Now, when we talk about doing one-on-one validation calls, there's a couple ranges of franchisees I want you to speak with. And the first range is based on performance. And I want you to start with a superstar, a rock star. They are the best franchisee. They are the rock star. Baseball analogy, they are hitting home runs. Then I want you to talk to somebody that's a solid performer. Good revenue, good profits, good solid performer. They're not superstars, just good solid businesses making money. And then I want you to talk to somebody that is struggling. Maybe they got health issues, marital issues, they're not following the system, something's going on. They're struggling. Now, why this is difficult is franchisors just can't give you a list of top performing franchisees. So I created what's called the ladder approach. The way the ladder approach works is you ask the franchise development person, who was your top performing franchisee? That's who I want to talk to first. I want to talk to the superstar, the rock star, because that's what I want to be when I'm a franchisee. And when I'm talking to that franchisee, that top performing franchisee, ask them, by chance, you know a solid performing franchisee? Maybe not a superstar like you, just a solid performing franchisee. And when you're talking to that solid performing franchisee, say, by chance, do you know somebody that might be struggling with the business model? Maybe they got health issues, marital issues, something's going on, they're struggling. So work your way down the ladder by talking to somebody that's a solid performer, superstar, solid performer, somebody struggling, by asking, do you know somebody? The second range I like is based on time. And I want you to talk to somebody that they've been around for 2 months. They are in the weeds. They are in a rapid learning mode, just trying to figure it out, get their feet on the ground. And then I want you to talk to somebody that's been around for a year. Now they've got it dialed in, they've got it figured out, and they are in a rapid growth mode. And then talk to somebody that has been around for a couple years. If the system will bear it, not all systems will allow you, they won't have for that franchisee around for a couple years. But if they do, talk to somebody that's been around for a couple years, because they're probably in more of a sustained growth mode. The reason why I like length of time is, number one, is that you can learn about the different phases of being a franchisee. And number two, validating time, is you can see how that franchise company's evolved. And franchise companies evolve, so learn a little bit about how that franchise company's evolved. And that is validation made simple. So if you're trying to figure out, are franchisees happy? And if they're making money within a franchise system, validation is the way to do that. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us on the Hire Yourself podcast. Pete's here to help you break free from the corporate rat race, take control of your destiny, and finally live life on your own terms. Whether that's jumping into franchise ownership full-time or starting it as a side hustle. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a fellow frustrated executive, and leave a review to let us know your thoughts. Until next time, take charge, build your future, and live life on your own terms.